Hey, welcome to What You Doin' with Brandon Horwin.
And Sophie Williams. And today's special guest
My
is
name is Karen Mason, and I'm a singer, actor, personality mover. And I've been lucky enough to do a lot of theater and recording, and now some television and cabarets, and pretty much anything anyone will pay me for.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Karen, and I'm
Thank you.
thrilled to be talking with you today. Unfortunately, we're missing Sophie due to Tropical Storm Elsa that already struck Baltimore. So they're out of power, but she's here in spirit and with her questions. So,
Yeah, we're getting it right now, as a matter of fact. So, we.
well, fingers crossed that
Yeah,
we're all
right.
good. So Karen, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to, how you got your start in performing and theater and music and how you knew that this is what you wanted to do and, what roads did you take to help, lift up your career and kickstart your career?
Well, that is a very long answer, but I'll try to give you the abbreviated version. When I was growing up, my mom loved music. My mother was a pianist, and so we always had music around the house. And a lot of it stuck, and my sisters and I would put on shows, and I realized I liked to sing. When I was in high school, it was the way to meet boys was to go do the shows at the boys' school. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and I didn't meet any boys, but I did find that I loved being on stage. It felt like I was actually home finally. It's that feeling of that it's just right to be there. I did a lot of community theater. I went to school at the University of Illinois Chicago Circle. And in 1976, a very, 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 very long time ago, I met a guy I went and auditioned at a place called Lawrence of Oregano, a restaurant in Chicago that had singing waiters and waitresses. And so I went and auditioned and met a gentleman I worked with for 16 years, whose name was Brian Lasser. And Brian and I started working together and creating I guess our nightclub, our cabaret, um, our entire history of cabaret for us. I was so happy. I loved doing it. I just loved working with Brian. It was just pure joy. But during that time, also, he was writing for other people. He was a writer and an arranger and an accompanist. And I started doing, we moved from Chicago, which is where we started, to New York and started doing theater and cabaret and going back and forth and back and forth, and usually coming back to Chicago to earn money to go back to New York and survive. I feel very lucky that I've had that opportunity to go back and forth. I think I've always felt that one medium feeds the other. What I learn in theater can only enhance what I learn in cabaret. And they're different skills, they're very different skills. And I feel really lucky that I've had that opportunity to do that. And now then recording and some television and, a lot of other very fun things. But, mostly it's um, just keep learning. I think that's what I feel is the most important thing about all of this is never stop trying to discover about yourself, about the business, about your talent, you know.
Absolutely. And I just thought of a question based off of that. This is why I love these so much. I feel like you've truly mastered both things you just said, theater and cabaret. And that, and you've noted that they're two very different forms of performing. How are they so different? And how have you found your preparation for each of them to, differ to still deliver what each audience is expecting from each different performance?
Sure. Well, with cabaret, it's basically you and your musicians. That's the type of cabaret I do. I'm not part of a group or so it's me singing all of the songs for 70 minutes, with either piano, bass, drums, an entire, orchestra, whatever. To me, that responsibility of having people stare at you for 70 minutes and you have to figure out a way for it to be a story without kind of hitting it over the head that this is a story. There has to be an arc to every cabaret. There's an arc within a song, there's an arc within a cabaret. And over all the years that I've done it, in conjunction with the people that I've worked with, which, I call upon greater talents than I to help me. And that's Barry Kleinbort. First I had Brian Lasser, then now it's Chris Denny at the piano as my music director and Barry Kleinbort as director. We let me be myself. I've come to a point now where I'm very comfortable with being myself in front of an audience. And I'm sure it's because I'm a middle child and, so I always looking for that, for people to like me and make it all okay. But, that's a really important part of a cabaret performer to me, is that comfort level. I'm not afraid to share who I am with you. In theater, it's usually bigger. It's one character. It's one personality. It's, depending upon the size of the role, you get to, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't get to watch the arc of a character, and participate in it. Sometimes you just come on and do something and then you're gone. So I think it's utilizing specific parts of your personality, whereas when I do cabaret, it's Karen Mason. You get what you get what you see.
Absolutely. So, bouncing off of that, can you tell us a little bit about your Broadway debut in the original production of Play Me a Country Song, which is, it's not a name you hear every day. So, what was this experience and show like?
It was one of the more disappointing experiences of my life. Because I thought I'm doing a Broadway show. I'm so excited. This is going to be fantastic. It's my first Broadway show. I moved here to do Broadway and to be part of all of that. And we closed on opening night. It was the most unorganized production. And I've heard this from a lot of other performers that, sometimes that's just the way the dice roll. But this had been done off Broadway as a show called Jukebox Opry. And they decided to move it. And it was a review before. Now they wanted to add a book. That hardly ever works. And so everybody was arguing, all the artistic staff was arguing with each other. Nobody was talking, nobody was trying to get it fixed. And as a result, you had a group of actors who were just not trying to make it work, baby, trying to make anything happen on that stage. And to the credit of all of the actors on that stage, at least we had something to open with, but it was very depressing. And I was supposed to, actors always do this. You go and audition for other things while you're doing a show because you never know how long something's going to last. So you keep auditioning. So I went and auditioned for Torch Song Trilogy when it was moving from off-Broadway to Broadway, and I got cast. However, it was going to interfere with Play Me a Country Song, and they would not let me out of my contract because I guess I was so integral to the show. not really understanding that the only reason they didn't want to do that is because they'd have to recast it, and they knew that it was going to bomb big time, and it did. They took us out on a boat, the Circle Line tour, for our opening night party, and wouldn't let anybody look at the reviews. And as a result, we walked off, and got our pink slips and were told to pick up our stuff the next day. So, yeah. So that was not exactly the big hoopla I was looking for with my first Broadway show, but it got better.
I was just going to say it was it was a start to a remarkable career. So
And it's a good story.
it
And
is.
yeah, we actually do. There was a song from the show, the title song, "Play Me a Country Song," which I, for some reason, found the music to, and it was like this weird little chart that was so strange. And we do it now, in a couple of shows. It's a beautiful song written by Harry Manfredini, who actually scored all of the Friday the 13th movies. I know.
Wow.
So there you go. He was the writer of the music for "Play Me a Country Song," and I have a feeling after that he never wanted to darken the door of Broadway again.
That's an awesome story, though. You're right. It does make way for a great story. You don't hear that kind of Broadway debut story every day.
Kind of a Broadway debut with a thud.
But then you did go on to be part of As the World Goes Round, a Candor and Ebb review. So, how do you personally work with this type of style of performing again? And, it requires, some acting, but a little less context behind what you're doing. You're not putting together a full production like a setting. So, how does this differ for your performing style, and what was this experience like for your career?
I'm not so sure it differed from my performing style, only because even though you're not creating a character that's going to be an hour or 2.5 hours, every song has to have a different character, has to have some, it's probably a nice amalgam between of cabaret and theater for me. It's that doing 12 different songs in 12 different styles. And The World Goes Round was really a great experience. We were part of it being created on us, and had many different versions that we went through. And getting to work with John Kander and Fred Ebb was pure joy. I love their music. It fits me so perfectly that to be able to do that to do that show and have them be around was really great. It was hard work because it's 5 people um, doing all kinds of circus tricks, and skating, that was not necessarily my strong suit. And things like dancing and dragging chairs, and it was a lot of fun. I loved the company so much. What a great company it was. But it was hard work. And at that time too, Brian was getting really sick from he died of AIDS, and so he was at that time starting to get very sick. So it complicated everything. All my emotions were wildly intense during that show.
Mm. And switching gears just a little bit, you were the standby for Norma Desmond, an iconic powerhouse role for Glenn Close in the 1994 production of Sunset Boulevard. So, can you take us through a little bit about what it's like to be a standby for such a ginormous role in musical theater? And what was so? I know you went on because right? Am I
Oh
correct in
yeah,
that?
quite a
'Cause
few times. Yeah.
I've seen the your performance, your at least a video clip of your performance, which was phenomenal. So yeah,
Thank
just
you.
take us through that.
Yeah, I actually covered Glenn, Betty Buckley, and Elaine Page. So I stayed on until I left 3 months before it closed in New York. I was in Los Angeles and New York. I had never been a cover before and didn't exactly know what it entailed. So it came as a bit of a shock to me what it was, because no one was, and this happens all of the time. People do not realize, and actors did not realize, that when you're a standby, a cover, a swing, no one is rehearsing you. It's yours. You get to watch, and then your responsibility is to know how to do it. They're not going to rehearse you until they start rehearsing, covers, and that's way down the pike. So, we started rehearsals at the end of August out in Los Angeles. And I had artistic staff coming up to me and saying, Glenn hasn't done a musical in a long time, so she's probably going to be out a lot. And, I thought, well, okay, but is anybody gonna, I don't know, talk to me about it or rehearse with me or something? Teach me the music? So it became my responsibility to go up to the dance captain and say, can you help me with this? My responsibility to go up to the conductor and say, can you help me with this? And because the director, Trevor Nunn, was so overwhelmed with, not overwhelmed, but he was very busy with what was going on with just mounting the show. And it was changing from London to Los Angeles. I hired a friend of mine who came over 2 or 3 times a week, and we worked on the script, because I thought, I am not about to look like a fool when I walk out on that stage. I have to protect myself. And the only way to do that and to eliminate every actor nightmare from happening is to be as prepared as I possibly can. And that's what I did. I really loved the show when I finally got a chance to get into the groove of it. The first time I went on was, we opened in November. The show opened in November, and the first time I went on was the following February. And so basically I had to be at the theater and wait until I could leave after about 15 minutes after the second act started. They figured they were kind of safe by that. But I would stand in the back and watch, or stand in the wings, try to be out of the way and watch, try to watch from every different position to see what was actually going on, to see her changes, to see where she, her traffic pattern. With all of that machinery, you have to make sure you're not in the way of the 30 people who are coming very quickly towards you. And so that was an amazing learning process for me. I did go on about 250 times.
Wow.
Yeah, most of it, they did offer me the vacations for all 3 women. And it was great. It was, it was really great, Brandon, was watching the difference between the 3 women, was being able to really, it was, definitely a masterclass watching all 3 of them tackle a role so uniquely. Each one was so different and so unique. It was fascinating to watch, because you go, this is the script, this is the music, what could change? And then you see how it changes with each personality. And that was fantastic. That was really great. I do feel like my cabaret training really came in handy, because in cabaret you don't get previews. You don't get, you basically rehearse at someone's home or in a studio, and then boom, you're on.
Right.
And so to know that I was sitting around, watching Star Trek for the greater part of the time, waiting for that call. And then when I got the call, to be prepared, I was so ready to do that show. Every performance time, I would do the show in my head. So I went through all of where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to say, where I was supposed to move. I did that 8 times a week, all by myself in my apartment.
Wow.
And, but that meant I was very prepared. And when I finally did go on, I think they told me I took like 10 to 15 minutes off the show. The stage manager came up to me and he said, "Okay, now you can breathe," because I don't think I breathed from the very beginning till the end. But it was a great gig. I loved it. I really loved it, and I love being able to watch those three powerhouse women,
That's
and then also to put my own mark on it.
I was about to say, that's amazing. And for our audience who's listening and watching, you should definitely go on YouTube and find Karen in whatever is available in Sunset Boulevard because it's amazing to watch.
Thank you, thank you.
And, switching gears just a little bit, you originated the role of Tanya in Mamma Mia on Broadway. And even though the show had already been a big hit in Europe, it made it even bigger, I would argue, splash in New York on Broadway. So, did you have any idea when you were, creating Tanya and the show with the whole team for New York that it would go on to have the effects that it did on the world, not just the United States, but on the entire world?
I don't think you think about that. I mean, certainly we were very aware when we started rehearsals and even auditioning for it, the enormity of it in London and in Toronto, and then the tour, because they had already done the national tour of the United States before they cast for Broadway. So we were very aware of this very popular show. This wasn't going to close on opening night. Um, and what was really fascinating about this show, once you start rehearsing, basically that's your focus is, you're thinking only about how do I make Tanya interesting? Who is she? What's her whole life been? You're not really thinking about all of the how it's going to impact. You're just
Right.
focused on your work. But we started rehearsals and then 9/11 happened in New York, so that really impacted so many things for us. It bonded the company in a way that uh, it galvanized. It just instantly galvanized us, and it made the opening, it made it all bittersweet and yet much sweeter, because that first night when we started previews and we did, they, when the show started, people were screaming. They were so excited to not be thinking about what had gone on outside of the theater, that there was this release of energy. And for us, it was a release of energy too. The expectation of, are they going to think we're just some, drippy little musical after what's been happening in the city for the past month? Um, it was really interesting. The rush of energy that came from the audience to the stage was deafening. It was Judy Kay actually, after the show, she said, "I think this is the closest we'll all get to being rock stars." And it's true. I mean, the energy was like whoosh. It was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. I love Tanya. Who doesn't want to play a party girl? You know, Married how many times, and willing to, still flirting and still, I the hardest thing was, knowing that I had to fit into white spandex. But it was fun. I loved it. I loved doing that show.
That's awesome. And we had to ask about it because it's just so iconic at this point. And
I still have my boots.
oh my God, that is great. And it's having so many like with the movie and then the second movie, it just keeps having waves of newer, like acquiring newer fans and just getting the word out there. And I feel like there's now a whole nother generation that's appreciating and
Oh my
clinging
God,
on to
this
Mamma Mia.
music of ABBA is
Timeless.
it's timeless. And I mean, that part I did not know. I kind of knew their music, but not really. And then as soon as I got cast, Dancing Queen was in every store I was in, every elevator, and I to see how people responded of all ages to their music was incredible. And still, like you say, it's just timeless.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have to bring this up because I was just watching Halston, the incredible mini series on Netflix with Ewan McGregor, and I said we have to pause this. That's Karen Lincoln. I had no clue you were going to be on the screen, and
Ah,
what a great surprise! So, how was filming that? When did this all take place? And you know, it's a great miniseries for anybody that hasn't checked it out. But Karen has a great feature in it. And can you tell us more about it?
sure. As like every probably every actor in New York who's theater actor, want to do some television. And I auditioned, and when I got cast, it was so exciting. And we shot the parts that the parts that I was in, that I was in, uh, they were done right before the lockdown for the pandemic. So it was February of 2020. And I have to say, I just being by Ewan McGregor, he was so sweet to me, and I loved being on set. But I became like a 16-year-old. I was just like, you, oh, you're so handsome. I didn't say that, but he was so sweet and so wonderful to me. It was very easy to fall in love with him as Mrs. Marsh, his first investor. And I learned a great deal. Dan Minahan, who is the director, was fantastic, and everybody, it was a kind of a big family. They were very inclusive of those of us who showed up, for just 2 or 3 days. But I loved the opportunity, and I, certainly want more because
Well,
it's fun.
it looks fun. You did a superb job. It
Thank
looked
you.
very natural. So, whoever's listening out there in the
That's
universe,
right.
help make it happen.
Cast me.
I would be remiss to not talk about the Judy Garland at Carnegie Hall concert. Now, before we started recording this, we were saying how we can't believe it's 2 years ago that the Axelrod Performing Arts Center did in Asbury Park. And, it was 5 incredible women, including yourself, that took on, what Judy did at Carnegie Hall.
Took 5 of us.
And what do you look back on that night as? Just it was such a special night, but how do you think about that night?
Oh, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved the women I got to share backstage with and on stage with. Doing those concerts. A lot of the great part of it is the backstage, the blabbing backstage, and the giggling, and then and the dishing and all that stuff that happens backstage. And 5 very strong, wonderful, beautiful women who got to share that incredible catalog, including one of Judy's daughters, Lorna Luft, who was so much fun to be backstage with. And it was really a lot of fun. Listen, singing those arrangements that I grew up with, it's just pure joy. And my voice, where it sits with all of that music, it just couldn't be more perfect. And the orchestra was phenomenal. And Mike Berkowitz was amazing. I mean, I love singing with him. He's a A conductor who's a drummer is a great thing. I mean, he does swing like nobody's business. And it was really great fun to do. I loved every minute of it. Every minute of it. I was hoping that there would be more and more and more and more of those, because people would just be, they would want to book all of us together because we were so adorable. And
Absolutely. That should tour that team touring the country. Oh, that would be.
oh, it would be wild.
Yeah.
The shopping trips alone would be crazy.
Well, as we're nearing wrapping up this incredible conversation, I have to ask a two-part question. Who is someone, if we haven't talked about them yet, that really inspired your career in some way, shape, or form? And then, is there a favorite story that you have from any point in your career that you just love to tell, that's fun or important in some way, or some shape or form of that?
Okay. Somebody I haven't mentioned, probably instrumental in my career. I'd have to say probably, I know this might sound might sound kind of Pollyanna, but my parents, who fought tooth and nail, in particular my mother, did not want me to go into show business. And when I met Brian, she was very afraid of it. Yeah, it turns out that my grandmother, who I did not know, was a singer. And my great aunt told me I sound almost exactly like Juanita. Well, my mother, having not had her mother around when she was growing up, probably that was part of her concern. But I never heard it that way. I never heard it as concern. I heard it as, you're going to fail. And then as soon as I met Brian and we started to really work together all the time, my mom and my dad could not have been more supportive. And I mean supportive in financially many times when we weren't making a lot of money, always in emotional support. And, they came to the opening of Mamma Mia, and it was, so they were very important fought me tooth and nail about it before, and through college. And then, when I probably looked like I had a sense of direction, were the most supportive ever. So I feel very lucky that I have had them to kind of let me learn along the way, which was a nice thing. And a story. Let's see. Oh man. This is like being called on by the nuns. Okay, I can tell you one about Sunset Boulevard. So the first time I went on, well, no, it actually wasn't the first time I went on. It was I would say it was like the fourth or fifth. There were always things that I didn't know, always things that were surprises, like about the guns. She, at the end of the show, she shoots Joe Gillis. And so no one told me that there were actually two guns. And so the way that the scene happened is I walked out on, they had a parapet. Did you see the show? It was a parapet, and then they had this very long circular, beautiful winding staircase. So I'm up in the parapet, and you're supposed to come in and, and see Joe, and then turn your back and listening to this conversation. So I came in with the gun that they had given me, and and held it to my throat, and then backed away. And then all of a sudden I look down and see there's another gun that says Norma. And I thought, I'm not sure which one is loaded. I don't know. Maybe the other one. So I picked it up because I thought, yeah, that's probably the logic, is that they put the one that's loaded down there so you don't blow your head off. So I put the one I had in my hand down. I picked up the other one, and I walked out on stage. And I this this happened actually the same night. Is I walked out on stage, and the costume was all cockatiel feathers. So it was, you're supposed to just lift your arm and shoot. Well, I hadn't quite mastered that yet. And so I lifted my arm and I shot, but it was an explosion of cockatiel feathers because I shot right through the sleeve of my costume. So all of these feathers are flying. So I shoot another time, and this one is supposed to hit Joe Gillis. And I shoot at him, and he falls. And he comes back to me after the show and he says, "Next time, could you aim a little higher? You shot me in the ass." I said, "I'd be more than happy to."
That's a great story. I love that. Oh my God, that's great.
So fun with costumes and actors. This is the life of a standby or a cover. You should always have great sympathy for them, because sometimes it's all question marks, all surprises.
And that darn prop table could always just get you. You never know. Well, thank you so much, Karen. This has been such a great conversation, highlighting what a remarkable career you've had and
Oh,
continue
well,
to
thank you.
have.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
So on that note, is there anything we can promote on here for our audiences for you today?
Sure. Coming up, I'll be not right now. We're working on finishing a new CD. I will be doing concert with some more cabaret starting in November. I'm going to be in Chicago doing Davenports for November 4th through the 8th. And then I'll be in New York November 16th playing 54 Below. And that'll be at 7:00.
This has been so great. Thank you so much. And you have a website that folks can go check out if they want more info on,
Absolutely. Upcoming things. It has all my schedule. You can buy my CDs if you'd like. You can buy my husband's CD if you like. You can buy sheet music. We have everything, Brandon.
I love it. That's great. Well, thank you so much again. You're great.
Thank you.
And it's great to see you again and chat, and stay well and safe. And we'll be in touch about next adventures.
Great. And please give Sophie my love and tell her I am so sorry I missed her, but next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Stay well.
Thank you.